Across most versions of Barbara Gordon, the story of Oracle begins with a tragedy. A violent moment, such as the events of The Killing Joke, takes Batgirl off the streets of Gotham and forces her to reinvent herself behind a computer screen. It's a powerful transformation and one that helped turn Barbara into one of the most important figures in the wider Batman supporting cast. But it also created a pattern. Oracle exists because something terrible happened. But one animated series broke that pattern. In Beware the Batman, Barbara Gordon becomes Oracle because she's brilliant and brave, not because she was broken. Instead of tragedy pushing her into the role, the series treats it as a natural extension of her talents. And to really illustrate the beauty of this creative decision, let's first talk about the earlier versions of the characters to help set the scene. Barbara Gordon first appeared in Detective Comics number 369, published in 1967, and if the name didn't give it away, she is the daughter of James Gordon. She's a librarian by day, but by night she puts on a costume to fight crime. Unlike Batman and Robin, she isn't driven by tragedy though, she just wants to help people. And she never even set out to become a vigilante, she just kind of stumbled into it. While on the way to a costume party, she came across Playboy Bruce Wayne being accosted by Killer Moth. She had chosen a Batman-inspired costume for the party, and this partially inspired her to intervene. Killer Moth assumed that she was a new member of the Bat family, and she just rolled with it. After defeating the villain, she decided to continue helping Batman and Robin. Now, she had been created specifically for the 1960s Adam West starring TV show, but she also played a part in its unofficial follow-up cartoon, The New Adventures of Batman. She joined Batman, Robin, and Batmite as the main heroes of the series. No new origin was provided, the show just assumed you were familiar with her from the earlier live-action version. While she wasn't the most prominent character, she was a good person who always did the right thing and was a valued member of the team, even if Batmite did creep on her for comedic relief. A major turning point for Batgirl arrived in 1988's Batman: The Killing Joke by Alan Moore and Brian Bolland. In this story, Joker shoots Barbara in the spine as part of his scheme to psychologically break her father. Barbara herself was never the Joker's true target, she was just simply the means to the end. That dynamic is difficult to ignore because it reduces a capable hero to collateral damage in someone else's story. The violence committed against her is meant to wound another man, turning Barbara into a symbol of suffering rather than an active participant in the narrative. So in that sense, the moment reflects a broader pattern in comics where female characters are harmed primarily to raise the emotional stakes for the male heroes. While the injury ended her career as Batgirl, later writers created a brand new role for her. Barbara returned as Oracle, a strategist and intelligence coordinator for Gotham's heroes. Operating behind the scenes, she provided surveillance, research, and tactical support for Batman, and later co-founded the Birds of Prey. This role transformed her from a field operative into one of the most influential figures in the superhero community. When Batman the Animated Series tackled the character, she developed far more gradually. She first appears as a college student in the episode Heart of Steel, where she becomes suspicious after the artificial intelligence Hardak begins replacing prominent figures, including her father, with robotic duplicants. Barbara investigates independently and assists Batman during the crisis, demonstrating courage and initiative before ever adopting a costume. She eventually becomes Batgirl in the two-part episode Shadow of the Bat, when Two-Face frames Commissioner Gordon through a conspiracy involving corrupt detective Gil Mason. Barbara disguised herself as Batman during a public rally meant to defend her father's reputation. When the event is attacked by Two-Face's gang, she intervenes and is quickly dubbed Batgirl by the press. Even after adopting the identity, she continues balancing vigilantism with her life as a university student rather than becoming a permanent partner to Batman. And when the show became The New Batman Adventures, Batgirl was a regular presence, following a mandate that the younger heroes appear more frequently. However, she's rarely the focal point of the plots. Instead, she's a reliable member of the Bat family ensemble. But Barbara's most substantial development in the animated universe arrives in Batman Beyond. Decades after her time as Batgirl, she has followed her father's path and become commissioner of the Gotham City Police Department. Her experiences with the Bat family, namely Tim Drake's violation at the hands of the Joker, is ultimately what drove her to hang up the cape. So they completely avoid making Barbara a victim. Similarly, she never became Oracle. As Commissioner, she frequently places herself on the front lines during crises, battling villains like Curare, the Splicers, and Spellbinder. Even without the costume, the same intelligence and determination continues, showing that she didn't need to be a vigilante to make a difference. A very different interpretation appears in The Batman, where Batgirl arrives during the show's third season as part of a broader shift towards lighter, more youth-oriented storytelling. Here, Barbara is even younger, a 16-year-old whose origins are tied to her former friend Poison Ivy. When Ivy kidnaps Commissioner Gordon during her debut, Barbara creates a Bat-inspired costume and helps Batman stop her. Once Batgirl is established, she actively pushes to become a part of Batman's world, repeatedly involving herself in his investigations and demanding to be kept informed. Her determination eventually leads Batman to accept her as an ally and reveal his identity as Bruce Wayne. Her role in the series was also shaped by an executive mandate. Because of DC's Bat embargo, Robin could not initially appear because the character was already in Teen Titans. As a result, Batgirl becomes Batman's first partner in this show's continuity. When Robin later joins the cast, Barbara transitions into a more traditional team dynamic with a friendly rivalry with Robin. Despite the show's lighter tone, the episode Artifacts briefly hints at a darker future in which an adult Barbara operates as Oracle from a wheelchair while assisting an aging Batman. They never explain what happened to her, so we can only assume that a Killing Joke-style incident took place, although given the lighter tone of the series, I doubt that such a dark story took place. Ultimately, this version of Barbara Gordon was very faithful to what had come before, and the same is also true of the Batgirl of Batman the Brave and the Bold, which deliberately embraces the colourful tone of the Silver Age comics. This version of Barbara Gordon closely mirrors her original portrayal from the 1960s and the spirit of that Batman. As a highly educated librarian with a doctorate in library science, Barbara becomes Batgirl purely out of admiration for Batman and a desire to help others. And there's no hint of the events of the Killing Joke taking place, so no connection to Oracle. The next show to feature Batgirl was Young Justice, and they took a very different approach to her transition to Oracle. The series portrays a large, interconnected superhero world with an expansive ensemble cast, meaning individual characters outside of the core team are rarely the focal point. Barbara operates as Batgirl for years before suffering a spinal injury, but she wasn't shot. She was wounded in an act of heroism, trying to prevent Cassandra Wusan from killing the Joker. She had no interest in saving Joker's life, instead she was trying to save Cassandra's soul, and this carries a very different message. She later adopts the identity of Oracle, providing intelligence and technical support for Nightwing and the wider network of teams. Much like the comics that inspired it, Young Justice treats Barbara as a vital strategic presence, even if she rarely stands at the center of the story. So there's a very clear pattern across most interpretations of Barbara Gordon. In the comics and many adaptations, her transformation into Oracle is born from tragedy, whether that's something bad happening to her or someone close to her. Oracle becomes a powerful reinvention of the character, but the transition is fundamentally reactive. Barbara takes a negative and turns it into a positive. This also shows that disability does not diminish a person's value or their ability to make a meaningful difference. However, beware the Batman sidesteps those topics entirely. In this series, Barbara never becomes Batgirl, and she doesn't become Oracle because she's been broken. She becomes Oracle because she is capable. From her earliest appearances, she is portrayed as exceptionally intelligent, determined, and fearless, gradually carving out a role as Batman's information broker and strategic partner. She starts out in a fairly typical role for a teenage girl. She is used as leverage to try and control her father, Lieutenant Gordon. Tobias Whale has her kidnapped by his supervillain lawyer, Phosphorus Rex, to try to get Gordon to release him. Of course, Gordon doesn't play along, and the fact that Batman helps him get his daughter back safe and sound establishes that Batman can be trusted. So really, Barbara is indirectly responsible for her father warming to Batman. In terms of her design, she is more tomboyish with short hair and more casual clothing. She's smart, confident, and brave even when faced with danger. From the get-go, she is fascinated with Batman and really can't understand what people have against him. As far as she can tell, he's doing the right thing, stopping criminals and protecting their victims. It's a youthful disregard for the establishment that her father finds both admirable and exhausting. She also has a way with computers which Batman leverages when Ra's al Ghul takes over Gotham. It's Barbara that hacks into the League of Assassins' Ion Cortex to release their grip on the city. Likewise, when Killer Croc traps Batman and Katana in a trap that leaves them in the path of oncoming subway trains, Katana contacts Barbara to divert the trains while they find a way out. So instead of setting her up as a costumed vigilante who is forced off the field by tragedy, the story suggests that she recognizes where her talents are most valuable and chooses to focus on them. Katana takes Barbara under her wing, giving her some basic self-defense training, although it doesn't do that much to help her when Killer Croc comes after her, and gives her a costumed identity of her own when Deathstroke invades the Batcave. When rounding up allies, Barbara is chosen for her technical expertise, not because she's some great fighter. She's there to work with the computers and help them decide what to do. Man-Bat and Metamorpho are the muscle. As part of this mini band of outsiders, she stands out, but she also proves herself by locating the bombs that Deathstroke had hidden throughout the cave. The series ended with Batman, who had often been hesitant to bring Barbara, or frankly anyone, into his world, welcoming her along with the other outsiders. Unfortunately, the show was not renewed for a second season, but if it had, then this illustration by producer Glenn Murakami indicates a bold direction she could have taken. We can see that Barbara could have taken on the role of Robin, echoing Carrie Kelly from The Dark Knight Returns. That possibility highlights something that's actually quite beautiful about this show's interpretation. Barbara is not defined by a single destiny. She could plausibly become Batgirl, Oracle, or even Robin, because her courage and intellect makes her worthy of any of those roles. Across the history of Barbara Gordon, one thing has always remained remarkably consistent. She becomes a hero because she chooses to be one. Whether she's stepping into danger as Batgirl, coordinating missions as Oracle, or eventually leading the Gotham City Police Department, Barbara's defining quality is her bravery and her initiative. She sees a problem and refuses to stand aside while someone else solves it. Given her age and size, it's not really credible for her to get into fistfights with villains, so she uses her brain instead. That's why Beware the Batman feels so refreshing. Instead of forcing Barbara into the Oracle role because of something done to her or a loved one, the series allows her abilities to guide her there naturally. Her intelligence, curiosity, and courage make her invaluable long before she ever puts on the costume. In this version of the story, Oracle isn't a consolation prize for a fallen hero. It's simply the role that best suits the person Barbara Gordon already is. And perhaps that's the most fitting interpretation of the character, because when you look at Barbara across decades of stories, one truth keeps surfacing. She was never defined by a single identity. Batgirl, Oracle, Commissioner, maybe even Robin. The mask might change, the role might evolve, but the core idea remains the same. Barbara Gordon becomes a hero because she decides to be. Okay, that's it for this essay. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, leave a comment, tell all your friends about me. You know how YouTube works. If you really liked the video and feel like tossing a buck or two my way, please consider using the thanks button, because every little helps. And if you have really enjoyed my work, you might want to pick up a copy of my book, Rogues Gallery. It features 22 essays on villains from Batman the Animated Series. There's a beautiful cover by Batman the Animated Series background artist John Calmette, a foreword by director Dan Reber, and a moving segment from the late Kevin Conroy sharing his thoughts on life, love, and loss. Plus, an exclusive essay on the Condiment King that will never be made into a video. Rogues Gallery is available worldwide on Amazon, both digitally and in softcover. Finally, channel memberships are just $1.99 a month and give you early access to my essays, custom emojis, and your name featured on my members end screen, which has been rolling for a little while now. Huge thanks to everyone who's already part of this. You've helped to make these videos possible. If you want to see your name up here too, join the channel now. And while I have your attention, please consider checking out my other channel, Serum Lake Comics, where I talk about mostly DC comic books. Next time, I'll be back on Monday to talk about another early episode of Superman the Animated Series, Little Piece of Home, the story that introduced Kryptonite. And next Friday, just ahead of American Mother's Day, I want to talk about a villainous matriarch from Batman Beyond who shows exactly how not to be a parent. Yes, it's a deep cut, but we're talking about Ma Mayhem. Hope to see you then.